Captain Tim Lewis stepped on the alien corpse's throat, squeezing until purple blood spurted from its cracked chitin. He scanned the cratered expanse of Kepler 1649c for more targets. These Andromedan bastards were about to learn firsthand why their kind avoided humanity at all costs. The distress beacon reached the Odyssey 30 light-years from the desolate exoplanet. Tim and his team were exploring the Eagle Nebula when it lit up their displays. Through heavy static, the panicked voice of an andro scientist repeated the facility's coordinates. Blood-curdling screams punctuated each loop. Something was slaughtering them. Tim diverted course at a flip of a switch, determined to locate survivors. He carried no delusions of rescue. No, the UES Odyssey raced into the unknown to carry out the time-honored human tradition when shit hits the fan. Payback. The facility was a crater when they landed, littered with mangled silver metal and shredded blue flesh. The acrid tang of ozone lingered in the thin atmosphere. Whoever hit this place possessed firepower that turned Tim's blood cold. The ruthless kind that didn't leave survivors. Then a volley of blasts erupted from a nearby ridge. Green plasma bolts zinged overhead, scorching craters in the rocky soil. One struck Brick square in the back, flinging him face first to the ground. Tim swore and dove for cover behind the smoking remains of an andro shuttle. "Coast Maverick, flank left, draw their fire," Tim shouted over the din of enemy fire. "Reaper, hammer on me. We'll gut these sons of bitches from the side." His team moved like a well-oiled machine, years of training and raw human grit propelling them into action. They had to neutralize this threat before word reached Andromeda, before humanity faced another alien menace hell-bent on grinding them to cosmic dust. But as a hail of plasma flew from unseen shooters, a dark reality crushed the breath from Tim's lungs. This was no ragtag band of andro vagabonds. This was a calculated strike against a human-controlled sector, and his team just blundered into the opening salvo of another goddamn intergalactic war. Plasma bolts zipped past Lewis's helmet as he rolled into cover. They were pinned down, outgunned, and running out of options, but he didn't earn the captain's bars by throwing in the towel when things got hairy. "Pour it on 'em, Reapers," Lewis roared. He popped from cover and squeezed off controlled bursts driving the andros back. That's when he spotted a blue-skinned alien writhing on the ground, purple blood pooling beneath its mangled leg. An opportunity. "Ghost, grab that andro puke, he's coming with us." They hauled ass back to the Odyssey, dodging green blasts that singed their armor. Once aboard, Lewis slammed the andro against the hull. It hissed through pointed teeth, compound eyes blazing with hate. "Listen up, Blue Boy. You're gonna tell me what the hell you andros are up to, or I'll space your ass out the airlock." The andro soldier, Tsar, spat a glob of blood, but as Lewis's grip tightened, he relented. "You humans always interfering. Commander Vox has found the Nexus. With it, he will open a wormhole to Andromeda and bring our armada to this pathetic galaxy. Your species will be space dust." Lewis's blood ran cold. The Nexus, an alien artifact of immense power lost for eons until now. Where? The temple on Kepler 1649c's moon. But you'll never reach it, human. It's guarded by our fiercest warriors. "We'll see about that," Lewis growled. He had a plan, suicidal as it was, but the alternative was letting humanity burn. Tsar's intel proved good. Lewis and his team slipped into the temple posing as andro soldiers, their suits masked by Tsar's cloaking tech, columns of blue-veined stone twisted up to a vaulted ceiling. And there, on a hovering pedestal, glinted a metallic key, the Nexus key. "Magnificent, isn't it?" a voice boomed. Vox strode from the shadows, flanked by guards. "Did you really think you could deceive me, human?" Weapons flashed, plasma streaked. Lewis dove at Vox, slamming a fist into the andro's elongated skull. They traded blows in a vicious dance, Lewis's augmented muscles pitted against Vox's wiry strength. The temple quaked. Chunks of stone rained down, triggered by their intrusion. Lewis snatched the key and kicked Vox back. "This isn't over!" "Run, humans!" Vox cackled as he fled. "Run back to your doomed species." Lewis and his team sprinted for the exit, dodging falling rock. The Odyssey lifted off as the temple collapsed in a plume of dust. They had the key, but as stars streaked by, Lewis knew this was just the beginning. The Odyssey streaked through the void, blue plasma trails dissipating in its wake. In the cockpit, Lewis gripped the controls as his mind raced. They had the Nexus key, but Vox was still out there, no doubt plotting his next move. "Captain, we're picking up Andro-com chatter," Reaper called from the comm station. "Looks like that blue bastard Vox is holed up in a fortified station in the Cygnus system. He's massing ships for another attack." Lewis's face hardened. They had to strike now before Vox brought the full might of Andromeda down on humanity's head. "Plot a course, Reaper. It's time we took this fight to Vox's front door." As the Cygnus system loomed on the viewscreen, a swarm of Andro fighters descended on the Odyssey, plasma cannons blazing. The ship shuddered as Lewis wrenched the controls, narrowly avoiding the deadly barrage. "Brick, Ghost, get on those guns. Hammer, what's the status of that Andro ship we snagged?" "Fully operational, Captain. Cloaking system is online." A plan formed in Lewis's mind, desperate and daring. "Reaper, Hammer, Brick, Ghost, Maverick, you're boarding that Andro ship. Use the cloak to slip past their defenses and get inside that station. Plant charges on their critical systems. I'll keep these bastards busy out here." His team filed out, grim determination etched on their faces. Lewis swung the Odyssey around, drawing the fighters away as the cloaked Andro ship streaked towards Vox's station. The dogfight was a dance of death, Lewis weaving and rolling as Andro ships swarmed like angry hornets. Plasma scorched the Odyssey's hull, alarms blaring in the cockpit. But he gave as good as he got, missiles and laser fire ripping through the enemy formations. A proximity alert blared. Vox's personal fighter squadron, sleek and deadly, had joined the fray. Lewis recognized the lead ship, Vox's cruel visage visible through the cockpit. Lewis gritted his teeth and threw the Odyssey into a dizzying spin, plasma bolts sizzling past. He lined up a shot and squeezed the trigger, a missile streaking towards Vox's ship. But the wily Andro juked at the last second, the missile detonating harmlessly off his shields. "Captain, charges are planted." Reaper's voice crackled over the comm. "Ready to blow this joint." But before Lewis could respond, another transmission cut in. It was Vox, his voice dripping with malice. "Leaving so soon, humans, and just when things were getting interesting." The viewscreen flashed, showing Reaper and the others surrounded by Vox's elite guard, weapons trained on their vital organs. "I must admit, your species continues to surprise me," Vox sneered. "But your meddling ends here. I've rigged this station's reactor to blow. In minutes it will erupt, vaporizing this facility and your pathetic colonies in the region. The Nexus will open, and Andromeda will flood through." Lewis's blood ran cold. The lives of countless humans hung in the balance. He had to stop Vox, had to save his team. But with Vox's fighters swarming and time ticking down, the odds seemed insurmountable. He took a deep breath, hands tightening on the controls. One way or another, this ended today. Lewis grimaced as the comm fell silent. Vox's threats echoed in his mind as he yanked the Odyssey into a steep dive, narrowly evading a salvo of plasma. The bastard had his team. He had to act fast. "Brick, Maverick with me, we're going after them." Lewis's voice crackled over the ship's intercom. "Reaper, Hammer, Ghost, hold the line. Buy us time to get to that reactor." Acknowledgements overlapped as Lewis sprinted to the airlock, Brick and Maverick on his heels. They boarded the cloaked Andro ship and rocketed towards Vox's station, the massive structure looming before them like a steel spider crouched among the stars. The ship shuddered as they docked. Lewis motioned Brick and Maverick forward, rifles raised. They crept through the eerily silent corridors, the only sound the clank of their boots on metal grating. A scuff of movement. Lewis spun, finger tightening on the trigger. But it wasn't Vox's guard, it was Zar, the Andro prisoner, clutching his wounded side as he stumbled from the shadows. "You!" Lewis growled, jabbing his rifle at Zar's chest. "How'd you get out?" Zar raised his hands, wincing. "I escaped in the chaos. Listen, human, I know you don't trust me, but I can help. I know how to stop the reactor. Lewis hesitated, instincts warring. This andro had led them into Vox's trap, but the sincere desperation in Tsar's voice gave him pause. Countless lives hung in the balance. He had to take the chance. Talk fast, Lewis snapped, lowering his rifle a fraction. Tsar nodded, relief flickering across his blue features. The reactor has a failsafe, but it requires two to activate. One human, one andro. Vox designed it so your kind could never shut it down alone. Lewis clenched his jaw. Typical Vox, always one step ahead. Fine, but if you cross me, I'll put a plasma bolt through your skull. They raced through the labyrinthine corridors, Tsar directing them with terse commands. Lewis couldn't shake the feeling that this was another trap. But what choice did he have? Distant plasma fire echoed through the halls, Reaper, Hammer, and Ghost holding the line. Lewis gritted his teeth, praying they could give him enough time. This way, Tsar urged, ducking into a side passage. Lewis followed warily, Brick and Maverick covering their rear. As they ran, dodging patrols and trading potshots with Vox's guards, a grudging respect kindled between Lewis and Tsar. The andro fought with a fierce determination that matched his own, his loyalty to his squad unshakable. In a brief lull, hunkered behind a bulkhead as plasma sizzled overhead, Tsar met Lewis's gaze. I never wanted this war, human. Vox's hatred poisons us all. Lewis nodded slowly. Seems we're not so different after all. A ghost of a smile flickered over Tsar's alien features. Then they were moving again, racing against the clock. They burst into the reactor room, a cavernous chamber pulsing with malevolent red light. The reactor, a seething mass of energy, strained against its shielding, control panels sparking and flashing warning sigils. Brick, Maverick, cover the door, Lewis barked. He turned to Tsar. All right, how do we shut this thing down? Tsar hurried to the primary control console, long fingers flying over the keys. I'll enter the andro codes. You need to simultaneously input yours on that panel there. Lewis positioned himself at the indicated station, the controls alien and unfamiliar. Just tell me when. Tsar's fingers blurred. The reactor groaned, the angry red light flickering. Now! Lewis stabbed the keys. For a heart-stopping moment, nothing happened. Then slowly the crimson glare began to fade, replaced by a stable blue. A triumphant grin split Lewis's face. They'd done it. The reactor was... The doors blew inward. Vox strode through the smoking wreckage, plasma rifle leveled at Lewis's chest. Fools, the andro snarled. You only delay the inevitable. Behind him, Reaper, Hammer, and Ghost were dragged in, bound and bloodied but alive. Lewis's heart clenched. He had to end this. Now. He charged at Vox, a wordless battle cry ripping from his throat. They collided in a clash of armor and flesh, plasma bolts searing the air. Lewis rained down blows, his armor-enhanced strength fueled by pure, righteous fury. But Vox was fast, his wiry blue form twisting away from Lewis's strikes. His rifle butt cracked across Lewis's jaw, stars exploding across his vision. They grappled in a desperate tangle of limbs, Lewis grunting as Vox's bony elbow dug into his throat. The andro commander was strong, far stronger than any alien Lewis had fought before. A flash of movement in the corner of Lewis's eye. Tsar, rising from the console, a jagged shard of metal clutched in his fist. With a roar, the andro leapt at Vox, stabbing downward. Vox whirled, faster than thought. His plasma bolt took Tsar square in the chest, hurling him back in a spray of purple blood. No! The anguished cry tore from Lewis's throat. Grief and rage surged through his veins, igniting his blood to plasma. He smashed his head into Vox's face, bone cracking, wrenched the plasma rifle from the andro's grip, fired point-blank into Vox's chest. The andro commander staggered back, dark ichor oozing from the smoking crater in his armor. His compound eyes fixed on Lewis, bright with shock and hate. Then he was gone, vanishing into the shadows. Lewis started to give chase, but a weak cough drew him up short. He rushed to Tsar's side, cradling the andro's broken body. Purple blood bubbled from the hole in Tsar's chest, his life leaking out between Lewis's desperately pressing fingers. "So you did it, human," Tsar rasped, a rattling cough. "Vox is beaten. My people are free." "I couldn't have done it without you," Lewis said fiercely. Hot tears stung his eyes. "I was wrong about you, Tsar, about all of you." Tsar's hand gripped Lewis's wrist. His multifaceted eyes glinted, not with hate, but with a deep, unshakable respect. "This is only the beginning, Lewis. You must forge peace." The light faded from Tsar's eyes. Lewis bowed his head, grief a leaden weight in his chest. Then, jaw clenched with purpose, he reached for his rifle and stood. Vox had escaped, and Lewis would hunt him to the ends of the universe if he had to, for Tsar, for all of them. This wasn't over, not by a long shot. Plasma bolts scorched bulkheads as Lewis sprinted through the disintegrating station, the deck shuddering beneath his boots. Vox was close, the andro's mocking laughter echoing through the smoke-choked corridors. Lewis vaulted a twisted girder, his blood roaring in his ears. He couldn't let that blue-skinned bastard escape, not again. He burst into the hangar, a cavernous space filled with drifting debris and guttering fires. There, Vox's sleek fighter, engines flaring to life. The andro commander was already inside, his cruel face lit by the cockpit's glow. No time to think. Lewis leapt into the nearest ship, a battered andro interceptor. The controls were alien but familiar, muscle memory from countless simulations kicking in. He slammed the throttle forward, the inertial dampeners struggling to compensate as he rocketed after Vox. They plunged into the starry void, weaving through the detritus of shattered ships and still-burning wreckage. Vox was good, his ship dancing and juking with preternatural agility. But Lewis was better. He had to be. Gritting his teeth, Lewis rolled and spun, matching Vox's move for desperate move. His ship shuddered as Vox's cannons found their mark, alarms screeching in the cockpit. Didn't matter. All that mattered was putting that genocidal fuck down for good. Memories flashed through Lewis's mind as they dueled. Tsar's final rattling breath, Reaper, Ghost and Hammer fighting to the last, the billions of lives hanging in the balance, oblivious to the knife at their throat. His jaw clenched, knuckles white on the stick. No, never again. With a wordless roar, Lewis wrenched the controls, sending his ship hurtling towards Vox in a kamikaze run. Vox tried to evade, but it was too late. Metal screamed and sparks flew as they collided, the force hurling them both into the gravity well of a nearby asteroid. They hit hard, Lewis's skull slamming against the instruments. The world spun, darkness eating at the edges of his vision. He tasted blood, felt the sting of 100 lacerations. But he was alive, and so was Vox. He kicked out the cracked cockpit, debris shifting and settling around him. The asteroid's surface was a blasted hellscape, pitted stone and jagged metal. And there, rising from the wreckage of his own ship like a demon from the pit, was Vox. The andro's armor was battered and scorched, purple blood leaking from a dozen rents, but his eyes blazed with unquenchable malice, his long fingers wrapped around the hilt of a plasma sword. The blade ignited with a hiss, bathing his cruel features in bloody light. Lewis reached for his rifle, but it was gone, lost in the crash. He drew his combat knife instead, the monomolecular blade a slim sliver in his fist. Didn't matter. He'd kill Vox with his fucking teeth if he had to. They circled each other, predators sizing up prey. Then Vox lunged, blindingly fast, his blade slashing for Lewis's throat. Lewis parried, sparks cascading, ozone stinging his nostrils, and then they were in it, a whirlwind of flashing steel and snarling faces, Lewis's blade clashing against Vox's in a storm of sparks. "You think you've won, human," Vox hissed, his sword a blur. "You've already lost. Andromeda's seeds are planted in the heart of your worlds, waiting to bloom in fire and death." "Shut up and die," Lewis snarled, but a cold fist squeezed his heart. Sleeper agents, infiltrators. All this just a distraction for the real strike. Could he stop it? Could anyone? His moment of doubt nearly cost him his head. Vox's blade hummed past his face, close enough to raise blisters. Lewis retaliated with a vicious slash, but Vox was already gone, darting back with preternatural speed. Fuck, he was fast. Faster than Lewis. Stronger, too. It was like fighting a machine, tireless and utterly merciless. Blood ran into Lewis's eyes, his arms leaden, aching. He could feel himself slowing, his every parry a fraction more sluggish. Vox sensed it too, lips peeling back from jagged teeth in a shark's grin. This was it then, the end. But if Lewis was going down, he was taking this blue bastard with him. He lunged in a final, desperate gambit. A roar of thrusters, a shadow falling across the blood-soaked stone. Vox's head snapped up, eyes widening, and Lewis saw it too, a battered Andro shuttle hurtling down from the stars on a collision course. Strapped into the pilot seat, face pale and drawn and utterly determined, was Tsar. "No!" the cry ripped from Lewis's throat. But it was too late. The shuttle slammed into Vox with the force of an exploding sun, fiery shrapnel spewing from the point of impact, heat and light and searing pain. The blast flung Lewis back, slamming him into a jumble of twisted metal. He lay there, stunned, ears ringing, every breath a knife in his chest. Slowly, agonizingly, he dragged himself upright. The wreckage of the shuttle burned sullenly, thick smoke pouring from the shattered fuselage. And there, sprawled broken in the dirt, Vox. The Andro commander lay in a spreading pool of his own blood, his armor a crumpled ruin. His sword arm was gone, sheared off at the elbow. But he was still alive, his remaining eye fixing on Lewis with pure, unfettered loathing. Lewis stumbled to him, knelt beside his fallen foe, the knife a lead weight in his fist. Vox's mangled lips twitched, flecks of indigo blood splattering as he spoke. "You've changed nothing," the Andro rasped. "The invasion is coming, my people will never stop. Not until your worlds burn and your species is nothing more than ash and memory." Lewis stared down at him, at this creature of malice and hate, defeated but unbroken, and he knew with grim certainty that Vox was right. This was far from over. Earth, the colonies, all of humanity. They were balanced on the edge of annihilation, and he, Tim Lewis, might be the only one who could stop it. "Maybe," he said softly, "but they'll have to go through me first." The knife fell. Vox shuddered once and was still. Lewis rose, his body one giant ache, the weight of worlds pressing down on his shoulders. In the distance, he could see the Odyssey, limping towards him through the stellar debris. His ship, his crew, his fight, now more than ever. He thought of Tsar, of his sacrifice, of Reaper and Hammer and Ghost, and all the countless others who had laid down their lives in this shadow war. Their strength flowed into him, steeling his spine, hardening his resolve. He would not let their deaths be in vain. Could not. Lewis turned his back on Vox's broken corpse, limped towards his battered ship and the battles yet to come. The Andromedans were out there, hidden among humanity like a poison in the blood, and he would find them. He would root them out, burn them from Earth's soil like the cancerous growth they were. No matter the cost, no matter how long it took. He was Tim Lewis, captain, soldier, defender of Earth, and he would not rest until his people were safe. You have reached the end of the story. If you enjoyed this story and want to support us, please leave a like and subscribe to our channel, and for every comment that says 88, I will heart every single one of them. Thank you for your time.